Salute YouTube. How's everybody doing today? Happy Saturday. I want to talk today about Anthony Gaspipe Casso, Salvatore Sammy the Bull Gravano, and the FBI and the government as far as, their dealings with and the use of cooperating witnesses, rats, informants, whatever you want to call them. So I'm going to start with Gaspipe's childhood. I'm going to skip around throughout his life. I'm not going to tell his whole life story, just some of the, things that stick out. And like I said, it's really most important for me to get to the ending, his decision to cooperate and what took place after that, because you don't hear many stories like this when it comes to these cooperators. So Gaspipe was born in 1942 in Brooklyn to Michael Casso. Michael Casso was lifelong friends with a guy named Salvatore Sally Calambrano. Sally Calambrano was a captain in the Genovese family, and he was also godfather to Michael's son, Anthony Casso. Now, Michael was known as Gaspipe on the street because he would carry a small length of lead pipe from a gas main that he would use to collect loan debts and gambling debts and things for Sally Calambrano. Gaspipe, or Anthony Casso at the time, before he was Gaspipe, was recorded years later saying, I was always sitting in a wise guy's lap. Since I was born, they were good friends with my father. It's the only life I knew. So they say Sally Calambrano always had Anthony Casso pegged as a future mafioso, a future gangster, wise guy. And that's seemed like the path that was carved out for Anthony Casso at a young age. He began his life of crime in his young teens as part of a street gang called the South Brooklyn Boys. And at 16 years old, he dropped out of high school and started making some pretty powerful connections. Eventually, he joined the Lucchese family under Christy Ticfernari, and he excelled in all the major rackets. He made a ton of money along the way. They say he wore a diamond pinky ring that was valued at about $100,000. In 1968, he married Lillian Del Duca, and they settled in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. In 1974, he fulfilled a lifelong dream by becoming a made member in the Lucchese family. And after that, he began robbing banks and jewelry stores with his crew known as the Bypass Gang. With that, he was on the rise. He was making millions. And around this time, he became friends with Vic Amuso. And together, they got heavy into narcotics trafficking. Amuso had contacts in South America, and they moved huge shipments of marijuana and cocaine into the States. Throughout all this, they left a trail of bodies all over the place, including burying a 20-something-year-old kid alive. This is one of the reasons Anthony Gaspipe Casso is known as possibly the single most treacherous individual in organized crime in New York. Eventually, they began phasing out their drug business, and after that, Gaspipe linked up with a Russian guy named Murat Balagula, and they got involved in the gas tax scheme. Now, I know a lot of you guys heard about this scheme through Michael Franzese. He was a big player in this. There's a lot of, controversy around who really discovered the scheme and got it rolling. Who knows? I guess we'll never know. It's not really important, though. Anybody who doesn't know about the gas tax scheme, they basically had hundreds of gas stations up and down the East Coast that, through gas wholesale licenses and stuff, they would steal the tax money off of every gallon of gas from these gas stations. And it made them millions. Gaspipe, he said he was bringing in about 1.2 million every month. Now, with this, Gaspipe was on top of the world, obviously. And throughout this time, he was killing people left and right. Basically, anyone that crossed him. at, I'm sorry, in 1986, after the commission case, when all the bosses were sent away, Amuso and Casso basically took over the leadership of the Lucchese family. Now, around this time, an attempt was made on Gaspipe's life, and he wanted revenge for this shooting. He turned to the mafia cops. I don't know if you've heard about these guys, but their names were Louis Eppolito and Stephen Caracappa, and they were very corrupt cops who basically worked for Gaspipe and were paid large sums of money to find out information and even kill for Gaspipe and Amuso. And they committed several murders for them. So after this attempt was made on Gaspipe's life, he obviously wanted revenge. That's the type of guy he was. He wasn't going to let this go no matter what. And he turned to these mafia cops to find the guy that committed the shooting. This was a kid, a tough kid at the time. You know, he was involved in a lot of bad stuff. His name was Jimmy Heidel. And the cops found out this information through police reports and through other things, and they basically kidnapped Heidel and delivered him to Casso. Gaspipe Casso then tortured this kid for hours upon hours until he got information out of him. He got the name Angelo Ruggiero, also known as Quack Quack, and this led to a string of murders, including the murder of Eddie Lino that was committed by the mafia cops themselves. Now, in 1990, the feds indicted more than a dozen mobsters in what was called the Windows case, and Casso and Amuso caught wind of these indictments coming down, and they went on the lam. In 1991, Amuso was caught at a shopping mall in Pennsylvania, and in 1993, Gaspipe was caught at a hideout in New Jersey. A year after his arrest, Gaspipe decided to cooperate with prosecutors. He was facing a life sentence, but according to him, prosecutors promised him 6 years in return for his cooperation, similar to what they gave Sammy the Bull for his cooperation. Casso pleaded guilty to scores of crimes, from murder to racketeering to conspiracy, with the mafia cops, Louis Eppolito and Stephen Caracappa. He was interviewed about his life of crime, and everything was recorded on 302s. In all, Casso admitted to 36 murders, but there was a small problem. Some of his testimony conflicted with that of another major government witness, Salvatore Sammy the Bull Gravano. Casso told prosecutors that Sammy was a major drug dealer, and this is something that Sammy had denied in his own testimony. Sammy confessed to 19 murders, and Casso also said that the number was much, much higher. So basically, this is where, to me, it gets interesting. Casso pleaded guilty to all these crimes. There was all these 302s, all these confessions, and, basically he filled them in on 40 years of unsolved murders and unsolved crimes, and he gave them boatloads of information on a lot of different people. Now, like I said, they were going to give him 6 years for this until he started talking about Sammy the Bull Gravano. And this is where I get a little pissed off. Because the whole thing is that in the government's eyes, it's okay to absolve somebody of 19 murders, but being a drug dealer, that's a step too far. So I'm quite sure that even if Sammy the Bull did tell the FBI that he was a major drug dealer, they told him, no, you can't say that. Okay, as everybody knows, they needed Sammy the Bull to convict John Gotti, and convicting John Gotti was the number one foremost fucking priority of the FBI and the government at that time. They weren't going to do anything to risk the chance of John Gotti beating another trial, especially not that trial. So once Gaspipe came out and said, no, Sammy lied in a lot of his testimony, and he was a major drug dealer and he killed a lot more than 19 people, the government got scared and they said, no, you can't say that. Because if you say that, it could call into question all of Sammy's testimony and his credibility. And next thing you know, John Gotti might be able to, appeal and maybe have his conviction overturned. And John Gotti's back on the street. They were not going to let that happen no matter what. So what eventually took place was, after Casso basically refused not to include this stuff in his testimony, they decided, well, we can't use his 302s at all. We can't let him testify at all because he's going to say these things about Sammy Gravano, and we can't have him, calling doubt upon Sammy Gravano's previous testimony and the stuff that he had said on the stand. So they tore up Casso's cooperation agreement. Now, to hear them tell it wasn't about that. Of course, they can't say it was about that. They say it was about a lot of other things, that Casso had been breaking rules in jail and blah, 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 and, that he had been lying in his testimony, because, of course, they're going to say he was lying. So if this Sammy thing gets out, they could say, no, that's not true. He lied about Sammy being a drug dealer and killing more than 19 people. So they tore up his cooperation agreement, and they sentenced him to 455 years in prison. Okay? After all the information he gave, after pleading guilty to all these crimes, including 36 murders, and giving them everything they wanted, they said, no, you are not going to risk the conviction of John Gotti under any circumstances. We will just tear your cooperation agreement up and we will put you away for life, and we'll call you a liar every day after that, so nobody ever believes anything you say about Sammy the Bull Gravano. Obviously, this is aggravating, guys. I mean, this whole thing is aggravating to begin with. The fact that Sammy the Bull could kill 19 people and then possibly move in next door to you a few years later is aggravating. The fact that they do this with informants in general is aggravating. But, they give a guy a cooperation agreement, and just to protect another cooperating witness, they break their word, tear it up, and put the guy in jail for life. Now, I'm not saying Gaspipe didn't deserve prison for life. He absolutely did. A guy like him, we're all better off with him off the streets, as we are with people like Sammy the Bull. But it's just the fact that it goes to show that their interest in keeping Gotti locked up for life was so big that they were willing to tear up a cooperation agreement with a superstar cooperator like Anthony Casso, who gave them 40 years of unsolved crimes, murders, everything. That's how they work it. They have a target, and when they get that target, they will let nothing get in the way of, their success on prosecuting that target. So, like a lot of other things, it all came down to John Gotti. And, like I said, this is the lengths they were willing to go to. I also find it hilarious that if you look back on things, they actually had said that part of the reason they didn't want the jury originally knowing about Sammy the Bull dealing drugs is because, 19 murders, people can be okay with that. But being a drug dealer, no. No, people aren't going to like that if we let him out after he cooperates. Which, listen, guys, I know drugs kill people and stuff, but let me tell you, the government is the biggest drug dealer in the world, the American government. I mean, this is where, you think we're flying planes full of these drugs in here that we sell or that we sold? I mean, it's so crazy. And I know that drugs kill people and that drug dealers can be the scum of the earth, but not every drug dealer is killing people. I don't know many drug dealers you can pin 19 murders on, like you could on Sammy the Bull Gravano. But apparently, being a drug dealer was just a step too far for them. They were okay with Sammy committing 19 murders, but not being a drug dealer. So, again, all of Gaspipe's testimony and his 302s would have revealed Sammy as that. So, Gaspipe stayed in prison from 1993 until I believe it was December 15th, 2020, where he died days after being diagnosed with COVID-19. So if you guys ever want to look back on it, there's an interview, I believe it was 60 Minutes, I'm not sure, but if you YouTube Anthony Gaspipe Casso, I'm pretty sure you could still find the only prison interview he ever did, and he discusses all this. And he talks about how, 40 years in the street, he could, trust, the biggest scumbag on the street just on a handshake that they wouldn't break their word. But he couldn't trust the government to do the same. So there's a lot of stuff you could find on him. If you ever feel like reading a book, which I know is hard for me now. I've done most of my book reading in jail. That's actually where I read Gaspipe's book the first time. I was doing 8 months, and I had every mafia book under the sun sent to me, so, I had something to read and keep my mind occupied. But yeah, YouTube this stuff. Look up Gaspipe's case, and if you ever get the chance, read the book Gaspipe, because it's fantastic. I think it's one of the best mob books ever written. It was written by Philip Carlo. He also did Iceman, and he was a hell of an author. And he was also personal friends with Gaspipe because he was, from Bensonhurst, and he knew a lot of these guys. So that's it for today, guys. I just wanted to tell you guys that story. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know if I'm going to be doing another show today. I'd like to do a live one at some point, but it depends on our plans. I think we're going to go do some, take my stepson to go ride some go-karts and stuff today. So hopefully I'll see you later. If not, I will definitely see you guys tomorrow. And until then, salute.